Hi, this is Peggy from Roar. So today we are very fortunate. We received my great friend Solon from Mindbridge. So Solon is the founder and chief impact officer of Mindbridge, and Mindbridge offers AI-powered financial data analysis. So thank you so much, Solon, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me, Peggy. It was a pleasure.
That's great. So let's chat about the new normal in financial services. So first question for you. So what do you think will be some of the major lasting impacts on financial services of the current crisis?
Well, I think everything that was up for debate as an option to do digital now is becoming mandatory. So it's also, there's a lot of convenience that was demanded by, especially the banking sector, by clients, or even simply, when you look on the M&A side of having easier access to data room and due diligence done a bit more digitally, is just now forced on the financial and service industry. Same thing also if you look at the rating, how ratings have been conducted and the conversations around it. Everyone has seen what happened with the exit of $500 million 2 years ago. I think it was Enzo. I forgot the name of that company that was digitalizing with data science all the transcript and then making suggestions and ratings based on that. Now looking back, I think they sold too early. Right now they'll be making a killing. Yeah. They'll be worth several billions.
2020 size.
Yes, and I think those are not things that are going to go away. I mean, I'll give you an example. And also it's very interesting because I take the most simple example, which is banking and retail banking, right? I gave up retail banking. I was so happy to switch to using mostly Koho for everything I do. Yeah. And the reason why is nothing against the bank, but it's just I'm a very nervous, impatient, demanding customer. I hate standing in line. I just can't stand it. I hate waiting 30 minutes on a phone call. I'd rather just have an intercom chat, and then go away and people come email me back. And so the convenience factor, as simple as banking, so also now everyone's remote. And it's very interesting because I'm still a client of one of the big banks and I see how they struggle and they're still not fully operationalized 3 months after on things I need from them. And it was no difference with my Koho interactions. It's just like, it was just the way it is. So I think the new normal in the financial services industry is a lot of things that were already in motion that are just now imposed on us. Yeah. I think digital first is going to be there to stay. Because once you give convenience, so I was joking, my neighbor, again, that theme for me is convenience. I think the lasting impact is now everyone expects things to be a bit less frictionful and be able to be accessible on demand at any time, anywhere where people are, which is actually not that much wanting to be in line somewhere or waiting on a call, or, that, I think that would be a big difference. The other thing also that I found very interesting, once people understood that you don't have to be in a financial physical place to have that mingling effect. For example, we used to talk about, London or New York or Singapore. Now it's like, wait a second, it doesn't matter really anymore, right? Exactly. Why do you have to have your HQ there when actually now we're all digital everywhere in the world? Exactly. So who do we hire that is probably, so I met I'm going to give a shout out here for one of the most interesting startup I met at the Singapore FinTech Festival, Value Advisory, which they did a partnership with Credit Suisse in Switzerland, and they were based with the development team in Vietnam, and they actually worked in New York before, but they moved to Singapore, India. And you look at that team, I'm pretty sure they're thriving right now. I should couch them. They were at the seed stage, and then they were doing very interesting things on ratings, using data science. They were already living in what we live in now, which is the founder, which was in New York, learned everything he had to learn working at Bank of America and other places, and then realized that the cost structure makes no sense to hire a team there, went to hire in Vietnam, and found there was a bigger network, more active network in Singapore, but yet the clients are in Europe. So this is a poster child to me as to what the financial services industry will look like. It's going to normalize things. And I think the cost structures are going to change dramatically. If you look in the National Post and also in I think it was the Wall Street Journal, they talk about some employers are telling straight up the employees that they should expect salary cuts. I mean, this is a big deal. Someone is in New York will have to compete with someone that's in Vietnam. Exactly. Like that might change a lot of things, right? And I don't think we're ready to understand what that means exactly.
No, that's a great point. And changing gear, talking about regulations. So what do you see? And that's obviously linked with some of the things you've said. What do you see regulations changing, new regulations following the crisis?
Well, actually, you don't know that side of me, but I have a very strong hate-love relationship with regulators. I love to contact them often. I love to bug them all the time. I love to challenge them all the time, and they hate me for it.
I'm surprised.
So look, I mean, I think I just give you the most simplest example, right? When Stripe launched, they broke 20 laws.
Yeah.
Is Stripe out of business today? No, the laws were outdated. So it takes time for the regulators to react. So I'll give you an example, which is my personal, pet peeve. Look at the Wirecard situation, right? Look at Lucky Coffee. Look at all these audits that just were done so bad, and the regulators just there's no consequence in North America. In Germany, I can tell you, someone's going to jail.
Yeah.
When there's such a bad audit done and something passes like that, in the German law, there's jail time. In Netherlands.
I was reading that for 3 years, Ernst & Young didn't get the bank statements. Or do you, I mean, that's your bread and butter, you know that better than anyone else. Or do you audit and you don't ask for bank statements? I'm like, come on.
But this is really the importance here that we have to understand. And audit is a prime example of that. What are we talking about when we talk about policies and regulation? It's supposed to do two things: protect society and foster and enable an environment of fairness. Mm-hmm. Right now, I feel that many regulators have no clue of the real world. Like, they talk about things as if the internet doesn't exist sometimes, as if the physical location and jurisdiction is relevant. When, for example, you look at Luckin Coffee, so, the politicians will say, oh, they blame it on China because it's a Chinese company is different there. Well, wait a second. It was an American auditor in China who did the work. No. This has nothing to do with China or the US. This has to do as to who we are allowed to list and what are the conditions, and why we remove so much regulations to just make sure the capital will flow, and because everyone makes money and taps into it. So everyone was pressuring the regulator to say, hey, calm down, it's okay, just let it happen. And now when there's massive losses, billions of dollars, like, what did the regulator do? So it's everyone's playing a role in this. And so I think the policies and regulations in the new normal is going to be, first of all, acknowledging that there's no more such thing as physical regulations. Mm-hmm. And second, there's regulation de facto versus regulation in the law. The law is not enough. It's the responsibilities of the leaders to set the bar higher. Yeah. And this is where actually a change is. We can't wait for the next policy and regulation to start acting in a better way, to start expecting more, because we know today, for example, another topic that I'm going crazy over is money laundering. Yeah. 7 years ago, I saw a horrible case of a pedophile network who was using Apple apps, credits for children's app. Look at the sarcasm, the awful. They were using a children's app to transfer money to buy children's pornography, right? And when the FBI and others contacted Apple and says, you're enabling money laundering for really bad people, Apple just raised their hands up, says, we're not a financial institution, we're not privy to AML laws. I'm like, hold on a second here. What are you saying? You're dealing with money. You need to hold yourself to a higher standard. It doesn't matter the regulation didn't catch up. You need to hold yourself to a higher standard, because otherwise, as global citizen, we're enabling really bad people. So right now, where I'm like, there's a term that makes me ashamed of is snow washing. The fact that Canada, right, it has a term. If you go on Wikipedia and you look snow washing, it's the only country that had such lax ability to prevent money laundering, and even the society fosters it because realtors make money out of it in Vancouver, and the banks and the lawyers and everyone. They just let it happen. We have that to look beyond policies and regulation, because those take time to change. In the new normal, we really need to talk about integrity, ethics, and moral compass. That's the only thing that will save us.
I was chatting yesterday with a lovely lady who was a chief ethics officer at Transamerica. And I didn't even know these roles existed. And she was telling me that slowly but surely they were being enabled. And, that's exactly what you want to do.
And we need to respect also people's mandates. So I give you an example that makes me very sad. The number one reason why on Wall Street, chief audit executives quit more than other professions in the C-exec level is because they face too much pressure from the CEO.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah, not surprised. Yeah, that's no. These are very difficult roles like compliance, risk, audit, all of that. Changing gears slightly, actually. What impacts do you think COVID will have on the global financial stability and financial order?
It's very interesting. That is, I haven't set my mind on that yet. I'm still listening left and right because, there's always a loss of, the butterfly effect. And when you deal with humans, we are so unpredictable as a race. It's not like computers where you say, hey, go do this, code it, and it goes and does it again and again. Humans have a bit more like, interesting behaviors. One of those behavior, I was all positive that, with COVID, we're going to have less people commuting and more environmental relief with less pollution happening. And then I was on the phone with a CXEC in the Kenyan government to tell me, so you're dreaming. Because now people will not want to go in public transport anymore. They're all going to buy cars.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
Actually, if you look today, there's lines up at the driving license test centers. There's lineups of people waiting to get their driving license that are catching up with the backlog, but also people that before would have not bought a car. Yeah. Now they're comfortable being in public transport. That's going to stay. When someone has a car, they're not going to go back and sell it after COVID goes away. Yeah. So it's the same here. The behaviors on the global financial stability and the global order, we don't know exactly if it will last or not. In some aspect, I think I would less often go to the office. So think about the amount of REITs and the amount of money that is in, physical commercial property. Also, that's not going to be seen as the same level. That is going to change certain things in class of investment. I think also the way people are incentivized, if all of a sudden everyone can pretty much work anywhere. I can tell you, I have friends at Shopify that just pack their bag and move to Vancouver from Ottawa because now they just go by default. So they're like, in their 20s, they don't have kids. They like their parents, but not as much as being in the winter every year. It just all of a sudden the mobility of people is going to increase. I mean, myself, if my children are here and I have some friends here, but if I thought myself I was 23, 25 right now, the world is my oyster.
Exactly.
Surely, if you have, and then it's going to unfortunately accentuate disparity. Because this is great for people like me that work in the tech world or have office job that can remotely dial in. Yeah. But if you're someone that is not access to all that privilege, all of a sudden it is going to be a gap again. I mean, let's not forget that in India there was the biggest, migration ever since the separation with Pakistan that happened. Like kids walking dozens and hundreds of kilometers with their parents to go back in countryside because they couldn't feed themselves in the cities.
There we go.
So every country is limited by its popular belief, right? That's what he used to say all the time. So if you think of a world where financial services had corporate cultures that had their own popular belief, and all due respect to them, I met people at HSBC Hong Kong office and HSBC other places, and there was, in each country of those a culture of HSBC that was different, and overall the HSBC culture was different from the other banks. But so I have an advantage when COVID hit. I used to play to very healthy levels online games, massively multiplayer role games. And there's that concept of guilds and factions that people that were like engineers class, StarCraft, Fixer. And what happened is you have bodies of thought processes and cultures that were not by which factions you were part of as much as which class of player you are playing in that. I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with the financial services industry. It's not going to be I'm in Bank of America and this is the Bank of America way. It's, hey, I'm a risk compliance officer at Bank of America and I find myself to bind more with people that before I would consider competitor not to. Now I'm going to relate to them in a different way on online forums and how I interact with things. So I think there's going to be interesting reshaping of cultures in the financial services industry around not anymore which logo you have on your logo, on your shirt, which physical office, because it does shape behavior, right? All of a sudden you're online and you don't see your colleagues anymore. It's going to normalize the cultures inside of groups, like very large banks will actually have incredible opportunity to normalize globally their culture. Mm-hmm. Everyone was limited before by offices to have communications. Now the global HR team will have an incredible ability to normalize culture. And I think that's the biggest change that I think can happen. I don't know if it will happen, but that's going to be very interesting to see.
And how would you see that, or the crisis at a larger extent, impact and reset the competitive positioning of the financial industry players?
Well, I think, I mean, I keep going back to, the online banks that existed before this started, like Tangerine and like Boursorama in France. And those guys are like, what happened? Oh, we have more inquiries now. They were already all online for over a decade and things. So it feels good probably to be working there, because for them it's like business as usual, more or less. And what about the community banks, like the credit unions that had 3 or 5 branches in Minnesota? That was brutal for them. That was very brutal. I mean, some of them that contacted me randomly asking, you seem to be a guy in tech, so what do you do to protect your data? Because for them, protecting data is they just shut down the server room and they still had server rooms, right? So it's like, I think in competitive position, but guess what? Some of them are extremely competitive nature. They reacted like fast. They adopted cloud-based tools super fast. They switched all their digital signatures very fast. And I'm still waiting for some banks in Canada, one of the big banks in Canada, that still doesn't know how to use DocuSign. I'm like, really? You're in trouble. 3 months after this started, you still haven't just switched to using digital signatures. And then I know there's some legal aspect of that, but if you look at other startups that have already gone around that, it really tells you that there's some change in to happen. Also, and I mean, if you don't understand digital first, you need to get the DNA. You need to start hiring people that get it. Don't try to learn about it. Let's not talk about hiring. I'm sorry. I mean, I love McKinsey. Don't get me wrong. Like, they do great stuff some aspects, but they don't go try to spend another $10 million on consultants here. It's just like hire people that also then you didn't have access to before, right?
And talking about that, so in terms of digital transformation, where do you see financial institutions going? You mentioned the basic, DocuSign or digital, signature, things like that. Anything else you see to transform this?
I really don't like that term. I mean, digital transformation, to me, that means you're entertaining a legacy. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that mean? Digital transformation it means you're saying, hey, I need to get to the world where the internet exists. And I'm like, if you're in that situation, I'm like, oh my God, like there's a lot of problems here. And I think the term digital transformation is very interesting because there's everything that fits under that. And it prevents you from diving in at the second, double clicking as to, why do you need to do those things? So for example, I see situations where people implement RPA left and right and center because RPA fits on the digital transformation. What we should be talking is pause. The world has changed. Don't automate a process that existed before that world. Okay. Like, just don't do that. Like, you could be avoiding yourself a lot of headaches and time and money by thinking, should you do that in the first place?
Do you even need that activity in-house?
It's not about transformation, it's about reimagination. Yeah. It's like you have to rethink with yourself what you do, what's your purpose. And really, this is a time where leadership matters so much. It's very hard in the middle of a crisis like that to stand your ground or leaning into it, right? Like, for example, Shopify made that very controversial decision to say, you know what? Our office is now like welcome and recruitment center. We're all digital. And then like all the early stage company were like, what is he talking about? Because when you are the first 5 people, the amount of interactions you need to have and talk, like there's actually the opposite that happened here. In Ottawa, there's a startup, the 7 people, they said, my God, COVID happened, quarantine, the zombies are coming maybe. They rented a massive cottage by the lake, and they basically decided to do the opposite. The 7 of them and 2 of their families went all together in a mansion, 2 mansions by the lake, and they've worked even more productively because they're able to interact faster back and forth, and they don't have Zoom fatigue and all of that. So it's very interesting to understand as to, yeah, if you are Shopify and you have a strong sense of culture and resources, and anyway, you already have like more than 5 offices around the world, for you, it only makes sense to imagine yourself and lean into this way. But if you're a team of 7 people, seeing them less when you're used to be sitting shoulder to shoulder will slow you down and create Zoom fatigue. Doesn't make sense. So I think that's where I think, I was, funny enough, I was on the phone with 2 banking exec, and we just joined a panel on that. And I think there's a lot of different reaction, and there's the healthy ones and the not healthy one. The not healthy one is to have a lot of assumptions and not challenged. Mm-hmm. Says, oh, we assume we're going to all go back to normal, so just let's buckle up, let's wait, and invest a bit on facilitating remote access, but let's not change. Okay, what, and this is the thing what I think is very interesting is those assumptions. Like, talk about your assumptions. Are we going back? What will happen? And every company and every financial institution is going to act differently. That's the reality. And I think what I think is going to happen is lack of discussions. People are just not taking the time to have discussions until they matter, challenge each other as to if we're going to do this, why does it matter? Why is it a plus or minus for us? Don't just start adopting. It's not because HSBC, your Bank of America, and HSBC started doing something that you should do the same. You might have, it's simple as that.
Yeah, I absolutely with you on that one. So last questions, more of a personal question. So for you, what are the new habits or the old habits that you're shedding with that new situation?
Well, so much. I mean, it's been like so interesting. I think, first of all, I've really enjoyed it, I have to say. I mean, there was a bit of anxiety at the beginning and excitement at the same time, because like, oh my God, all those things I want to do in the home, I'm going to be able to do it. And I mean, I eat healthier, I lost weight, I have more time to think instead of being on an airport, jumping from one place to another. I was able to get closer to some of the teams on things that were always in the backlog. And some people were happy about that, others more stressed about it, unfortunately. But like, I think it's such a time of productivity for me. It's just like so good to be able to master a bit more time. Time management is so crucial on what I do. So I think the biggest impact it had also to reconnect with my loved ones. I ended up being able to talk more often with family and friends, because all of a sudden everyone, has a bit less commute time. The old habits that I gave up, well, I think there was a lot of what I call superficial activities in life that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we did a home full of love, a healthy body, and a peaceful mind, right? So then when you recenter yourself like that, having a bit more time to meditate, a bit more time to think about what really you're passionate in life, and apply the time towards that, I caught myself working 15 hours a day and being excited to do more the next morning in a whole different level. After being able to have the time of diving in, understanding it might last, changing completely the habits. The new habits that I've adopted, I think, is one, I think, of a lot more personal productivity before being dragged into an action. So now, because we have a choice very easily, no one can just grab you from your desk, or you can't just be asked. For example, a lot of clients before were like, we'll discuss it next time you're in New York. We'll discuss it next time you're in town, San Francisco. Hey, why don't we meet a restaurant? It's like, guys, this is gone. So like, can we actually talk as to why this relationship matters to you? And it's very interesting also. I did an exercise deliberately. For the first months, I kind of waited to see who would check on me if I'm alive. I mean, it's very simple on the personal level, but it makes you a sense of how much are you important on those people's life or not.
I did check on you. I think I did. No, I feel bad about
it. You did. Thank you.
It was all
because, everyone knew that I was traveling like crazy. I was in New York the week before in the building where there was those 2 or 3 cases announced the week after. And I remember going there, I was like, this is pretty real. I'm not sure I should go. There was like, like sense of duty, saying, okay, I'm going to go and try and close those deals. It's important. They never materialize after. And then everyone knew I was traveling a lot. So like, there was a joke in my office. People said, if there's one guy who's going to be the guy importing coronavirus in Ottawa, it's going to be that guy.
Uh,
So it was very interesting to see also how you value relationships, and also so one thing that I've changed, that before I was not a shy guy by any means, but I actually started really being very clear on where I stand on things that matter. So safety of my friends and how bad that crisis can get. I went through experiences in my childhood of, systems falling apart, and there's a pattern to it. When the water supply stops, electric supply stops, food supply stops, people get more nervous, riots and things. There is a potential for all those things to happen after certain things happen before, when there's a pandemic or there's a hurricane and things. And so I started being very concerned about my close friends, and I started in like a private group being vocal of things that people call me crazy. So one thing, for example, like early February, I basically packed on certain types of canned food, rice, and bottled water. That was bottled water in boxes, not in plastic bottles, because that can actually generate bacteria faster than when they're in closed box of Tetra Paks. It was very interesting. 2/3 of the people called me an alarmist, dismissed it. And then over time, as things unfolded exactly what I was saying before, people really asked me to speak up more. So I think the new habit I've taken is to be actually much more communicative on the things that matter for the audience I have. So the same thing that in my professional career, I've been a bit more assertive on guys. Warren Buffett said it, when a crisis happened financially, you see who's swimming naked, right? Yeah. That's when you see who's swimming naked, and that's no surprise. And I said it 3 months ago, I says, brace for impact. We need to have multi-billion case of frauds that just surfaces, because all of a sudden money is going to be pulled, the capital markets are going to be more nervous, and you'll see what happens. Out of this, I gain credibility because people first think, he's again doing the same thing, and people appreciate that. So I've started, I think, really talking less about everything to everyone and just narrowing more to things that matter to me and the most. And that's why also I stopped blogging. I stopped actually joining, like I used to do a lot of networking. I stopped completely. And I just became much more deliberate because I'd rather spend time, quite frankly, going for a bike ride with my kids now that they're here all the time than being involved in everything and nothing.
Yeah, that's and that mindfulness, I think, is something that really comes up a lot speaking with people, where I think we just step back thinking, okay, similar to what we are saying with digital transformation, do I even need to do that activities?
Yeah.
Or do I reimagine my own life and my own essence? So that's great that you're using the same playbook for yourself and for the organizations you're working with. So that makes a lot of sense.
But I was super lucky. Look, I consider myself super grateful. Some of the colleagues I have, for example, they started doing yoga. Then I didn't know we had a yoga teacher in our company. She started doing yoga. I never, me, I hate yoga. I'm really more of a boxer and judo guy. So it was like, yoga, not really for me. And then, you know what? I'm like, okay, well, there's no punching bag here. I'm not going to go back to the gym for a while. Let me try. I loved it. So like, I was very lucky to have a lot of people around that talked about things that are super useful during this crisis.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to do. I've been starting doing yoga every day, so we're gonna have to do yoga together.
I'm really not good at it.
It's not about being good. It's just about doing it. There's no competition, which is why it's great to do yoga. No competition. But
what do you mean no competition? You forgot who you're talking to.
Okay, we can compete if you want. That's right. But thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your thoughts. That was like super enlightening and very, very thoughtful. Really, really appreciate it. That's wonderful.
Anytime.
Thank you so much. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good day.